Jake Holloway never had a problem with his neighbors. That was one of the best things about living on a farm just outside city limits. Space, freedom, and the ability to mind his own business without anyone telling him what to do. His land had been in his family for generations, stretching over 50 acres of fertile ground, rolling hills, and a sturdy barn that had seen more seasons than any of the nearby houses. He ran a small but successful farm, selling produce, eggs, and honey at the local farmers market. Life was simple, peaceful, and exactly the way he wanted it. Then the HOA moved in. It started a year ago when a shiny new gated community was built next to his farm. The developers had transformed a patch of land that had once been open fields into a cookie-cutter neighborhood filled with identical houses, pristine lawns, and an air of artificial perfection. The people who moved in were different from the usual town folk. City transplants looking for the illusion of countryside, living while still being within driving distance of fancy cafes and boutique gyms. Jake didn't mind them at first. After all, people had a right to live wherever they wanted. But as the houses filled up, so did the complaints. At first, they were passive-aggressive notes stuffed in his mailbox, mentions of how his rustic lifestyle was an eyesore to the neighborhood. Then there were the unexpected visits from city inspectors, asking about his livestock permits and zoning compliance. That's when he realized someone in that HOA was making it their personal mission to push him out. And that someone turned out to be Karen Whitmore. Karen wasn't just a homeowner in the new community. She was the self-appointed queen of the HOA A woman who wielded the rulebook like a weapon and strutted around as if she were the mayor. She had the kind of face that was always scrunched in disapproval. The type of person who looked for problems where there were none, just so she could fix them. Jake first met her on a Sunday morning, when she marched up his gravel driveway, clipboard in hand, wearing a blouse so stiff it looked like it could cut glass. "Mr. Holloway," she greeted, her smile as fake as the spray-on grass her HOA mandated. "That's me," Jake replied, not bothering to hide the disinterest in his voice. Karen pursed her lips, glancing around his property like she was conducting an official inspection. "We need to talk about your setup here." Jake arched a brow. "My setup?" Karen's eyes flicked to his barn, then to the scattered chickens pecking around the yard. "Yes. You see, we at Oak Ridge Estates take great pride in maintaining a certain aesthetic standard. Your agricultural operation is in direct contrast to that vision." Jake had to bite back a laugh. Agricultural operation? Lady, it's a farm. Karen let out a short, clipped laugh, as if he had just made a naive mistake. "I understand that, but your property borders our community, which means it affects our property values. I'm sure you can understand how your facilities might be considered disruptive." Jake crossed his arms, leaning against the fence post. "And what exactly do you expect me to do about it?" Karen brightened, as if she had been waiting for that very question. "We have a list of guidelines you can follow to ensure your property aligns with our standards. For example, a uniform fence, restrictions on livestock, no unnecessary structures, and, of course, a ban on any offensive odors." Jake blinked. Offensive odors? Karen nodded solemnly. "Yes. Manure, livestock feed." She waved a hand at the chicken coop. "Other farm-related smells can be quite intrusive. It's only fair that everyone in the neighborhood enjoys fresh, clean air." Jake stared at her for a long moment, trying to decide if she was serious. She was. "Let me get this straight," he said slowly. "You're telling me, on my own land, that I can't keep animals, can't have a barn, and can't even let my farm smell like a farm?" Karen smiled, mistaking his disbelief for agreement. Precisely. If you cooperate, I'm sure we can come to an understanding." Jake nodded. Then he reached for the nearest fence latch, swung open the gate, and gestured toward the road. "I understand perfectly. Now kindly get off my property." Karen's smile faltered. "Mr. Holloway, there's no need to be rude. I'm simply trying to ensure we all maintain a standard of—" Jake cut her off. This land has been in my family for over 100 years. You and your HOA have been here for what, 6 months? You don't get to waltz in and tell me what to do." Karen's expression hardened. "I was hoping you'd be reasonable. But if you won't comply voluntarily, I'm afraid I'll have to escalate the matter." Jake gave her a lazy grin. "Go ahead. I could use a good laugh." Karen's nostrils flared. She turned on her heel and stomped back toward the neighborhood, her heels clicking against the pavement like an executioner's drumbeat. Jake shook his head, watching her retreat. He had dealt with bureaucratic nonsense before, but this was a whole new level of delusion. He figured she'd file a complaint or two, maybe send another letter. What he didn't expect was for Karen to declare all-out war. The next morning, Jake found a formal-looking letter taped to his mailbox. The envelope was thick, the paper high quality, and the Oak Ridge Estates HOA logo was stamped in gold foil at the top. "Dear Mr. Holloway, **. It has come to our attention that your property violates multiple community standards as outlined in the Oak Ridge Estates Neighborhood Improvement Plan. We kindly request you comply with the following adjustments to ensure harmony between our properties. 1. Removal of all livestock, including chickens, due to noise pollution. 2. Installation of an HOA-approved privacy fence to maintain aesthetic integrity. 3. Replacement of all farm equipment with visually appropriate storage solutions. Failure to comply within 30 days will result in legal action. Jake snorted. They really think they can tell me what to do on my own land? But he knew this was just the beginning. And he wasn't backing down. Jake knew the HOA wouldn't back down easily, but he had no intention of surrendering either. Over the next few days, he prepared for whatever nonsense Karen and her minions would throw his way. The first sign of trouble came when he found an inspector from the county zoning board snooping around the edge of his property. Jake, still holding a bucket of feed for his chickens, set it down and strode over. "Can I help you?" he asked, keeping his tone neutral. The inspector, a balding man with wire-rimmed glasses, cleared his throat. "Just checking up on some zoning complaints, sir. We've had multiple reports that your property is violating residential boundaries." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Funny. My farm's been here for over 100 years. That HOA's been here for 6 months. Pretty sure they're the ones violating boundaries." The inspector sighed, adjusting his clipboard. "Yeah, well, rules are rules. I'm required to follow up. And what exactly am I violating?" The inspector hesitated before reading off his notes. Noise complaints due to livestock, potential groundwater contamination from farm waste, and the presence of an unauthorized structure. Jake let out a slow chuckle. "Unauthorized structure? Do you mean my barn? The one that was built in 1942. The inspector shrugged. "I don't make the complaints, Mr. Holloway. I just investigate them." Jake folded his arms. "You finished investigating?" The inspector hesitated. He knew there was nothing wrong, but bureaucracy required him to go through the motions. "Everything seems fine for now. I'll file my report." Jake smirked. "You do that. And while you're at it, let Karen know I said hi." Jake knew it was only a matter of time before Karen escalated her tactics. The next morning, he woke up to find a new official notice taped to his barn door. Urgent HOA compliance notice. Your property is considered an eyesore by community standards. Your animals are causing disruption to the peaceful environment. Your barn paint color does not meet neighborhood aesthetic guidelines. Failure to comply may result in legal action. Jake crumpled the paper and tossed it into the nearest bucket. Oh, it's war now. If Karen wanted to play dirty, so could he. That afternoon, he got in touch with an old friend, a local lawyer named Dan Carter, a no-nonsense guy who loved nothing more than shutting down HOA overreach. Dan looked over the complaints, shaking his head. "They've got no jurisdiction over your farm. If they keep pushing, we can hit them with a harassment suit." Jake grinned. "Good. Let's make him sweat." To further drive his point home, Jake installed an even bigger, brighter sign on his property, right at the border where the HOA began. "Private property, not HOA territory. Trespassers will be fed to the chickens." By sundown, half the neighborhood had driven by to gawk at the sign. And by the next morning, Karen was back, this time with reinforcements. Karen arrived flanked by 2 HOA board members, a county official, and a man in a crisp suit who was undoubtedly a lawyer. She crossed her arms and smirked like she'd already won. "Mr. Holloway," she said smoothly, "I hope you're prepared to discuss this matter like adults." Jake leaned against his fence. "Oh, I'm always ready for a discussion. But something tells me you're not here for a friendly chat." Karen's lawyer stepped forward. "Mr. Holloway, the HOA is prepared to file an injunction against your property. We have multiple signed complaints regarding noise, sanitation, and—" Jake held up a hand. "Let me stop you right there. Dan Carter, who had been lounging nearby, stepped forward and pulled out a thick stack of legal documents. "See, here's the thing. Your HOA has no legal authority over Jake's land. This farm is zoned as agricultural property and has been for decades. Any attempt to enforce HOA rules is a violation of state law." The lawyer hesitated. Karen's smug smile faltered. The board members exchanged uneasy glances. Dan continued, flipping through the papers. "Furthermore, your continued harassment of my client constitutes legal intimidation. If you file one more fraudulent complaint, we will sue the HOA for damages." Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. "This is highly unprofessional." Jake smirked. "No, Karen. What's unprofessional is thinking you can bully a man off his own land. Now, if you're done wasting my time, I've got actual work to do." The group stood there, visibly fuming, before the lawyer finally sighed and muttered, "We'll be in touch." As they left, Jake turned to Dan. "Think that'll shut him up?" Dan chuckled. "Doubt it. But they're running out of cards to play." Jake cracked his knuckles. "Good, 'cause I'm just getting started." Karen and the HOA weren't done yet. They tried one last desperate move, filing a formal petition with the town council to have Jake's farm rezoned into HOA jurisdiction. Jake wasn't having it. At the next town hall meeting, he showed up with an army. The place was packed with farmers, ranchers, and local business owners, all sick and tired of HOA overreach. Jake stood before the council and laid out his case, presenting evidence of harassment, false complaints, and legal violations. When the HOA tried to argue, Dan shut them down at every turn. By the end of the meeting, the town council ruled in Jake's favor, formally blocking the HOA from ever attempting to annex his land again. Karen? She was voted out of the HOA by furious homeowners who didn't appreciate her wasting thousands in legal fees. A week later, she moved out. Jake watched from his porch as her moving truck disappeared down the road. He took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of fresh soil and farm air. His farm was safe. His home was his own. And no HOA would ever change that. With Karen gone and the HOA officially defeated, Jake threw the biggest barbecue Holloway farm had ever seen. Neighbors, local farmers, and even some ex-HOA members showed up. The night was filled with laughter, beer, and the kind of peace Jake had fought so hard to protect. As the sun set over his land, Jake leaned back in his chair, tipping his hat forward. "Told ya," he muttered to himself. "Ain't no one pushing me off my own damn farm."